other. Those limits look to be set pretty tight. We think it could happen again when the thrusters fire in the future, so we are going to suppress those messages.
We concur with suppress, not inhibit. Thank you.
That exchange between Jackie Mahaffey, our Capcom for tonight, and Reed Wiseman aboard Integrity, indicating basically to ignore sensor data. All of Integrity's systems are in good shape. Now, coming up on about 90 seconds till the crew module.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our special Fox Local coverage of the return of the Artemis II capsule. You've been listening to Mission Control speaking with the astronauts as they get ready to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, traveling upwards of 25,000 miles an hour, enduring heat of 5,000 degrees. I'm here with the executive director of the Space Research Institute at Georgia Tech University, a man who knows a lot about what is happening tonight, Judd Reedy. Judd, just first of all, an extraordinary, historic mission, but this part of the mission is actually one of the most precarious, in as much as these astronauts are going through so much just to get back to Earth.
It's incredible. Yeah, everybody thinks about launch being such a dynamic event, but reentry is equally dynamic, if not more so. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. It has to hit the corridors exactly right. You have to dissipate just an enormous amount of heat in a very short period of time. As a material scientist, it makes me really interested to see how these challenges are solved.
This has been quite a journey for these astronauts. They've made history, going the furthest of any human out into outer space, going around the dark side of the moon and then coming back. Extraordinary on the surface. But these four astronauts, this mission, besides some plumbing problems on board the Orion spacecraft, has really gone off perfectly and without a hitch.
They had some slight issues with some helium leakage along the way, still within the normal bounds, but they want to understand that. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. The weather's beautiful, as we can see from the footage there. So I think we're going to have a nice re-entry.
Kind of give us an idea, because it's interesting. We've been listening here for a little bit to the astronauts speaking to Mission Control and vice versa. We're seeing live images of what appears to be this capsule. What is happening right now?
Excellent timing. So that is the service module at the left, which is separating from the crew capsule, which was the part on the right. The service module was built in Europe. It provides the propulsion, the power, it's where they store the food. It's the trunk, essentially, of the vehicle, but it is not able to re-enter. So it gets released. Hopefully there'll be some excellent footage here from that service module looking back at the spacecraft that still has the four astronauts.
And so this separation means that the Orion capsule is now officially on its own.
It's on its own. It's got some batteries that are charged up, and now it's just for the next half hour or so plummeting into the Pacific Ocean.
What are the astronauts feeling, Judd, as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere? I talked about the fact that they'd be going, some 25,000 miles an hour, intense heat, 5,000 degrees. Obviously, not feeling all that inside the capsule, but what are they experiencing? What are they feeling?
I've never had re-entry, but I would imagine that they are having a fabulous light show as the plasma heats up, the nitrogen and the oxygen atoms. Certainly got to be plenty of vibrations as you begin to interface with the atmosphere more and more, and it gets thicker and thicker. I would imagine plenty of buffeting. A lot of relief, I think. They're going to start feeling the pressures of re-entry. It gets about 5 Gs, which is, some of us have felt that maybe in some of the really good roller coasters, perhaps. And that's actually designed to save the human body. When we bring robotic probes back, they'll get upwards of 100 Gs.
All right, so we know that the astronauts are going to splash down off the coast of California in the Pacific Ocean, specifically right near off the coast of San Diego, the Tijuana area. They've gotten a wide margin for the spacecraft to land. They're prepared in all sort of quadrants of the Pacific Ocean. But I want to take, I believe we have a couple of live pictures of what looks like the bow of one of the vessels that's waiting out there for the astronauts to land. If we can take a look, this looks like some photographers and other folks gathered out there, but talk about spectacular weather. It was spectacular weather for the liftoff. It's going to be spectacular weather for the touchdown out there in the Pacific. The seas look calm, which will help in sort of the recovery of these astronauts.
Very placid. Looks like 2-foot waves. Very little wind apparently. So we should. If you want to have recovery, that's the kind of sea state you want to have.
Yeah, and so mission controllers expect the Artemis crew are going to be silent during the re-entry portion of this mission. We know that they lost communication with the astronauts when they went to the dark side of the moon for a time, which was a little bit of a hold your breath kind of moment. And it's going to be another hold your breath kind of moment when they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. They had some problems with the Artemis I space capsule, I understand, and some of the heat resistance tiles. I don't know if you can speak to that, and then how they sort of re-engineered this spacecraft and improved it so that they wouldn't run into that problem again.
Yeah, it's actually not re-engineered at all. It's the exact same heat shield material as before they re-engineered the entry procedure. So it comes in at a much steeper angle than Artemis I. Did a skip maneuver, so it came into the atmosphere, then went back up, and then re-entered again. And so that it prolonged the heating. It was longer. It was hot for a longer period of time, and that caused gas to build up within the structure of the heat shield, which subsequently created cracks.
So they just kind of retooled how they're going to enter. They didn't change the metrics of the vehicle itself.
Nope. That's for this one. For Artemis III, they actually are going to change that, but they had already poured this heat shield material. Was already built. They did the analysis, and it's still a safe re-entry. The reason we do the skip is it gives a little bit better cross-range ability to be a good bit more precise in their landings.
I'm interested. You know, you are the executive director of the Space Research Institute at Georgia Tech University. I'm watching this as a layperson. I don't know what the heck is going on. I just know it's an extraordinary feat to get these guys up to the moon, around, and then back home. But as somebody who kind of knows the science around this, you must be like a kid at Christmas time watching this kind of stuff.
It's super impressive. I've wanted to be an astronaut since first grade.
Yeah.
So to grow up through the shuttle era in the late 1900s, and then come here to see that we're going to the moon again. I just can't wait till we actually land on the moon itself.
As somebody who's been watching the space program for as long as you have, it's not lost on you. You know, the starts and stops of the space program. Specifically, I'm speaking of, the 2 shuttle incidents, one on liftoff, the shuttle Challenger, and then one on Columbia on the reentry over Texas, where we all watched the spacecraft tragically come apart. And that's why, I mean, it's just part of space exploration where, we depend on the sophistication of the engineers that put these things together, but we all kind of hold a collective breath.
Sure.
when they come back into the atmosphere.
And don't forget about Apollo 1. That was not even in the launch. That was just practice on the pad. So it's very dangerous business.
Next stop for our space program is obviously going to be trying to land on the moon.
Yep.
Tell us how this kind of tees up that mission.
Yeah, this established all the different procedures and made sure radios work and the thermal control works. There were some comments that the capsule was a little cold, so they'll work on making that more comfortable. The next mission, Artemis III, which will be next year, will take one, perhaps 2 of the landers from either SpaceX and or Blue Origin, rendezvous with those in Earth orbit to make sure that the 2 spacecraft can come together. Hopefully they will connect to one, disattach, and then go connect to the other, and maybe they'll make friends, and the 2 Bezos and Musk spacecraft can connect together, which would be fabulous. That will not go to the moon, but it will demonstrate those capabilities. And then the following year, 2028, one of those will mount up with another Artemis and head to the moon and land.
It's incredible how we've sort of merged the private sector and NASA together to join forces and to carry out missions like this. You're talking about two titans of industry, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, working together on a mission like this to put man into space. And I guess this mission to the moon is sort of a step toward making it out even further into the universe, maybe out to Mars.
That would be fabulous to make it to Mars. And, you know, if you look back to the Apollo era, it was driven by national prestige. There was almost no commercial involvement other than contractors. Now, heavy commercial interests to participate in it. And that's why I think this era of space exploration is going to go farther, because there's both national pride interest, but also profit making opportunities.
Well, because space is a frontier that all of these missions are sort of setting the table to establish some sort of presence on these planets. And I'm talking about the moon, I'm talking about Mars, and expanding our footprint outside of Earth's atmosphere.
Anybody that's got a kid knows that humans are just built to explore. From the moment they're born, we're exploring our boundaries, and that's exactly what we're doing now. Taking the human experience as far as we can go. Right now it's the moon, soon it'll be Mars. After that, moons of Jupiter, asteroids. I can only imagine where we'll be in this century.
And so we're looking live at Mission Control and out in the Pacific Ocean there, as we wait for the splashdown of Artemis II, now detached from that propulsion vehicle and making its way back down to Earth on its own with those 4 astronauts inside. I want to see if we can listen a little bit to Mission Control speaking to the crew.
The parachutes will ultimately slow Integrity down from its peak speed of almost 33 times the speed of sound to a gentle 19 miles an hour at splashdown. The vehicle is now currently in a roll to the proper attitude for entry interface. Our trajectory is right on according to flight dynamics. Integrity is on a trajectory from southwest and northeast across the Pacific Ocean, descending at a rate of 15,000 feet per second. Range to touchdown 4,300 nautical miles, all the systems in excellent shape.
Integrity, Orion in the EI roll 180 attitude.
Looks good on board, Jackie.
This view out of one of Integrity's windows. We had a call for 3 good baros. Those are barometric pressure sensors that feed altitude and rate of descent information to Integrity's computers that will trigger the parachute deployment sequence. We are less than 9 minutes away from entry interface, 22 minutes from splashdown. You can see the reflection of one of the crew members in the window. Out in the Pacific, the weather conditions remain go. Just a few clouds, some scattered clouds, winds at 10 knots, wave heights just about 4 feet. A gentle day in the Pacific for the homecoming of Integrity's astronauts.
Integrity back in EI attitude.
We see the same on board, Jackie. Houston, purge is complete. Crew and vehicle are configured for entry.
All right, we're watching this together.
Houston copies.
Judd Reedy from Georgia Tech, Executive Director of the Space Research Institute.
And we're in step 37, transferring nav state to BFS.
Judd, we're going to kind of let this play in the background, but you were just telling me a second ago how the spacecraft is now bottom up, meaning they're making their final push into the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah, they separated between the service module, then rotated the spacecraft so that the blunt end, the heat shield, is properly oriented for what they call EI, entry interface. So it's lined up.
And Houston, in instruction 509, we are not below 0.2.
And so you can hear them reading back their checklists, and
yeah,
they're slightly off of one of the readings. And
you know, I know they kind of gave a wide berth as to where the spacecraft can put down in the ocean,
no
but
action required.
NASA's known for its like pinpoint accuracy in terms of where it's going to land.
Yeah, there's a really famous, I forget which Apollo it was, but almost landed right on top of the aircraft carrier. This is not an aircraft carrier, but it would not surprise me at all if we were able to see off the bow of this ship 3 beautifully full parachutes with capsule dangling below it.
I think the general question, one we've been hearing on our platforms, folks that are streaming along with us, is, you know, what these astronauts are feeling right now. We can see their reflection. You were explaining to me just a second ago that this is us looking out the window with them, and I don't know if that's Earth's horizon there on the bottom right of the screen, or
most likely
a reflection of something, but what they're really feeling, and not that you know because you haven't been into outer space, but what thoughts might be going through their head right now?
Certainly. I
guess they're pretty busy.
They're busy. They're checking their checklist. That's keeping them with something to do for sure. But there's time to look out the window, and it's just going to be a fabulous sight for them. Certainly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have this just engulfed by this beautiful ionized atmosphere around them.
So what are we going to see here in just a second? They're getting closer and closer. We're just a matter of minutes away now from atmospheric penetration.
Yep. So very tenuous atmosphere at their height, and very few atoms of oxygen or nitrogen present. But as they get closer and closer, those atoms get closer to each other, and eventually it forms what we would call an atmosphere. And so it'll begin to penetrate that, and when it gets to roughly 300,000 feet, that's when there'll be a tremendous amount of heating, as well as the ionization of the atmosphere that's going to block the signals, the radio signals, from getting back to us. So that'll be a kind of a nerve-wracking time for you, me, for the crew, for mission control.
And as precisely as the space capsule was able to slingshot its way around the dark side of the moon and then be propelled back toward Earth, it's the same sort of thing where they're on sort of a glide slope back down to the Earth and able to pinpoint exactly where splashdown will be.
Yeah, this mission is performed flawlessly from a navigation perspective. There were supposed to be several trajectory correction maneuvers as it went to the moon and came back, and I don't think they had to do any of them. I think they maybe did one, more just to practice things. But it was just so finely aligned, and that's just a testament to the scientists and engineers, hundreds of thousands of people all across the United States, Canada, Europe, really the globe, that put this spaceship together.
Speaking of, we're getting just a beautiful shot of the Earth here in the lower right-hand side of the screen, where it's positioned on Earth right now, or above Earth. I don't know. I'm imagining they have quite a ways to go. They might be over Asia, or
it comes in.
Are they coming from east to west?
No, they come in actually
west to east,
closer to Australia, and head up towards San Diego, kind of past Hawaii. That route. Very, very quickly, much quicker than any sort of airliner.
Are they able to, kind of take any of this in, if you will, and just appreciate the majesty of Earth as they kind of make their way back down, or are they, busy flipping switches and talking to mission control?
Almost all of this is going to be automated, because things happen much too quickly for humans to respond to it. You need to be very, very precise, so you're not flying this by stick. But certainly taking pictures, that's why so many people are interested in Artemis II versus Artemis I. Flew the exact same trajectory, could have taken the same amount of pictures, but it's that human experience. We want to put ourselves in that capsule, some of us do at least, to experience the views. The views have just got to be phenomenal of Earth.
Now, we know that we got some pretty extraordinary pictures of Earth back already from the astronauts as they made their way around the moon. Those actually had to be transmitted from craft to Earth. When they get home, what kind of data are we going to be able to retrieve off of this spacecraft? And the images are going to be 10 times better than what we've already seen.
Exactly right. We're no longer limited to 12 and 24 exposure rolls of film, so they've snapped hundreds and thousands of pictures along the way. That's the data that the public will appreciate. The data that scientists will appreciate will be the temperatures, the pressures, how much thrust was generated from the various different maneuvers to perfect it so that the next time goes even better than this one.
And so here we're looking at this extraordinary sight of the spacecraft, and it looks like, and I could be wrong, but that the Earth is moving a little bit faster underneath this spacecraft than it was even 2 or 3 minutes ago when we first started seeing a first glimpse of the Earth, that little sliver of the Earth in the lower right-hand side of the screen, which was just kind of hovering there. Now it's really moving beneath these guys.
Yeah, before coming here to the station, I was watching the feed before, and this was about 5 o'clock. The Earth was mostly stationary, but if you watched it for 5-10 minutes, you could tell it moved a little bit. And now, just because you're getting so much closer and you're going Mach 32, 32 times the speed of sound, extremely fast, hypersonic speeds.
I understand that we're only 1 minute from
under that,
from re-entry now. And we're about to see quite a light show. There's going to be a bit of a blackout period here while the craft runs through the atmosphere. It's literally an explosive experience. I mean, when you're talking about temperatures exceeding anything we can even imagine, and velocities and speed, none of us can really appreciate. They're going to sort of lose signal for a while. I wonder if we'll be able to get to see what they're going through, though, as they go down, or is that what blackout means? It's just going to...
Yeah, the blackout, the ionization blocks the RF, the radio frequency imagery. You can see the spacecraft begin to maneuver, so it...
Judd, look at how fast they're going now, right now.
It's incredible. So it will slowly go first to the left, then to the right to bleed off some of that energy. And as we're beginning to see it, we've hit entry interface. This will begin to glow more and more orange reds. As you see, we'll lose signal due to the ionization of the atmosphere around it.
So they'll probably be rolling on this themselves. We might get a look at that when they actually return to Earth.
Oh yeah, there's certainly, it's being recorded. It just can't be transmitted in live.
And so this is the collective holding of our breaths that we're kind of talking about here.
If you ever, Apollo 13 is my favorite movie, and there's a scene there at the end where Mrs. Lovell is squeezing her kid while they're in this blackout, waiting for Apollo 13 to come back. And
so we got a blackout of mission control too, it looks like, or maybe they went back to the shot of what is going on the spacecraft. Lower right-hand side of your screen, we got the people on the vessels waiting. I'm guessing they're part of this mission some way, somehow. Maybe family members are standing out there, members of the press waiting to take some pictures.
The sailors on the ship itself.
Sailors on the ship itself off the coast of California.
Looks like the image to the left is probably the a ground-based or maybe an aerial asset looking looking at the re-entering capsule.
Yeah, there was a little speck on the screen if you were looking closely, and that is the actual vessel. Hard to believe. But what happens, Judd, when they splash down? It's going to be a whole orchestra of things that come together to get these astronauts out of the capsule.
Navy divers will take a small boat out to the craft very rapidly. There'll also be helicopters. They will open the hatch. They'll well, before opening the hatch, they'll use sniffers to make sure that the atmosphere around the craft doesn't have any noxious vapors or things from the ablative heat shield or any rocket fuel leaking or things like that. Once that's all clear, open the hatch, hoist the astronauts out. They've been in zero G for a week and a half, which will weaken you. It's not as severe as we've spent years in space, or almost slightly over a year.
So they're going to have a little bit of rehabilitation to do once they get back on terra firma.
It'll be hard to walk a little bit, but they've exercised while they're up there, just using springs as some counter resistance. This looks like
Is this a live picture or an animation?
It was live.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an animation.
So this is kind of what they're going to be going through here.
Yeah, you can see the symbols at the bottom. The speed, 25,000 miles an hour. It's about 30 miles to above the surface of the Earth currently, but those numbers will be from Earth will be declining rapidly, as will the velocity here shortly.
Watching some of our folks online commenting, a lot of the prayer symbols in the comment section here.
Yeah, a lot of people.
As we do pray for these astronauts who, risk their lives going up into space on the frontier that most of us will never ever get to experience. At least us.
Maybe
the
children.
Maybe the kids,
exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah, I really very much think my kids will.
But they're trailblazers in so many ways, and they're charting the path forward to space exploration, deeper and deeper into space. The moon is no longer the limit.
Nope. And longer as well. Not just going there. Apollo was there for a few days. We're going to go there for many days, many weeks, ultimately months and years.
So we're about T-minus 9 minutes from splashdown. We're undergoing right now what's called the blackout period, where the spacecraft is hurtling through the Earth's atmosphere at thousands and thousands of miles per hour. And during heat, thousands and thousands of degrees, of course, the astronauts don't feel that inside the space capsule. It's a nice, comfy 72 or so degrees.
Yeah, it probably warms up a little bit, but not uncomfortably.
They're all in their protective space uniforms, or
they have reentry pressurized suits. So should there be a failure of the seal, which we've had in space missions before, they've killed Russian astronauts that way a couple times. That gives them a chance of survival should there be any issue there. But it doesn't seem at this point that that's important. But everything with human spaceflight is redundancy and making sure that those humans are safe.
Not lost on all this. We often think about when we consider these kind of missions. The first mission to the moon was something that everybody was sitting in front of their television watching. Neil Armstrong getting out for the first time and walking on the moon. And it was something that really brought not only our country, but the entire world together. Yep. And we just hope that, we're a little jaded right now. Technology has been in front of us for so long that for a lot of people, this is kind of an eye roll experience, but it really does sort of unify us as a country and a planet to see what we're actually capable of doing and exploring that far frontier.
Well, the moon is one thing that unifies every single person on the Earth. When I see the moon, it looks the same as somebody from China, from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, or wherever. It's the first science that any human being ever explored. Going back to Neanderthals, we recognize there's this big disk in the sky. What was it? It changes shape, changes position. Sometimes it's there in the morning, sometimes it's in the night, sometimes it's not there at all, but then it repeats in this cycle. So it's what taught us science to begin with. And so we've just, through the centuries and thousands of years, got more and more understanding of the moon itself, and that's what this Artemis mission is about as well, is trying to find resources that can support human habitation there, so that we don't have to bring the water with us. We can extract it from the regolith, which is the dirt on the moon.
I understand that we're going to be coming out of this so-called blackout period in just a second. The blackout period, again, if you're just joining us, is this time where the space capsule actually moves from space orbit and penetrates the outer layer of the Earth's atmosphere and re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, if you will. And that is an extremely volatile process, one that is very, very intense, explosive in nature on its own. What do you know about these astronauts that are on board? You said one is brand new to spaceflight,
Yep.
the Canadian on board. The other three more experienced, but what do you know about these four on board this capsule and what they'll be able to sort of enlighten us about when it comes to traveling in outer space?
Well, we've got the first woman explorer of the moon, first African-American explorer of the moon, Victor. Christina's the lady. Reed is the commander of the mission. He's a widow, so he's got two daughters that he's left on Earth, and presumably with some family and friends taking care of it. And then, of course, our Canadian partners that have been partners with the American space program for a very long time.
These are some pretty incredible images. What they are of, I'm not quite sure. If we're looking up,
yeah, this is either
the craft.
Yeah, this is either a ground-based or an air-based telescopic camera looking from far away, but trained on just the heat. It's probably potentially an infrared image just to maintain lock on it. But as long as it stays a nice circle like that, things are going
We like
well.
nice, white, bright circles.
Yeah, you don't want lots of parts coming
No,
off
we
of
don't
it
want
or anything
that.
like that.
Our mission control and the spacecraft back talking to each other. I don't know if we can hear anything necessarily.
I haven't heard much in my ear lately.
Integrity impact to the camera controller fail is no cab 1 views of the chutes.
So it does sound like we're out of blackout.
Integrity.
Yep, they responded. Talking about
We're processing good data through the GPS system. A good view of integrity. Time to splash down 4.5
starting
minutes.
to see some textures and colors, a little bit of highlighting on the spacecraft there, as it enters, and you can
and a view of integrity
pick
from
up
the WB-57.
speed of it as the cloud
We're at
occasionally passes
50,000
through.
feet.
So soon the top hatch will open. And a series of parachutes will come out. You can't let out the big parachutes right now because they could just get ripped to shreds. That looked like that was maybe when the top hatch came off. They'll send out a series of drogue chutes, which slow it down, then pilot chutes, and then ultimately the big parachutes.
Pyros are armed for
Matt, are
forward
we
bay
tracked?
cover jettison.
Oh, good. Okay. Because this is interesting stuff, what you're saying. I cannot believe that the camera lens that is on this thing is trained. It's moving so fast.
Yep. A human is not controlling that. That's automated.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't imagine a human
Look,
being there.
okay,
There's a
so
series
we
of
just got one
parachutes.
There they go.
and two chutes
And
just
we're
came
on
out.
drogues.
And Houston, we're visual 2 drogues out the window.
So you got some cloud coverage.
How
good
excited
drogue
must
chutes.
these astronauts be right
Next
now?
up,
We
And
copy, we see
think
them.
how incredible it'll be to open that
Next up,
hatch
the
after
deployment of
a week and a
pilot
half in a
parachutes that will
closed
pull the
capsule
main chutes
with your
out.
friends. There's no shower in there.
Time to
You're
splash
taking
down
showers
3
with,
minutes and 10
wet wipes
seconds.
essentially. So that fresh San Diego air will be good.
Okay, 3 minutes from splashdown. We got 2 parachutes out on Artemis II. The conclusion of a history-making mission.
Perfect descent rate
As you can
according
see,
to flight dynamics.
the beautiful Pacific Ocean underneath them. This capsule's still traveling pretty fast when you consider they're going to slow down to about
Hundreds of miles an hour still.
16 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So we got a couple more chutes to go before they can slow down.
Correct.
It's like the capsule is very much
passing through 10,000
intact
feet.
there.
So
Still on drogues.
well below the height of a commercial airliner. Commercial airliners fly about 30,000 feet. They're at 10,000 feet now.
So we're just seconds away from
You can
splashdown.
see the imagery
Okay,
from
so
the boat as well.
those chutes
Here are the big ones.
were ejected, and here come the big ones.
Main chute deploy.
And these chutes, Judd, are what really is going to slow this thing down.
Yeah,
We're
we
at
want,
5,000 feet.
we want them to start puffing out a little bit more than they are. There they go.
What if they didn't? Is there a scenario where they could really kind of splash down harder than they should?
Yeah, there are thrusters capability to provide a little bit of impulse, but
a little propulsion.
Not nearly enough to slow you down.
Okay.
Good 3 main chutes, good reefing, good descent rate.
Rates, and we see 3.
And that's part of the reason why we have 3 parachutes. That one can completely collapse, and you're still okay. The redundancy.
And so are these the chutes that's going to bring them down to?
This is it.
The slowest speed.
They're at less than 5,000 feet.
Now, when they touch down in the ocean, they're going to cut these chutes away so that they don't get in the way of extracting the astronauts.
Yeah, it'll hit, and you'll see them cut away pretty quick, I would imagine.
This is a perfect descent for Integrity. Its crew sounding hale and hearty on board. Time to splash down 1 minute, 15 seconds.
This is the conclusion of a historic 10-day or so journey up to the moon, the dark side of the moon, and back.
Integrity about to complete
these
a journey
4 trailblazing astronauts.
1,481 miles from its launch from the Kennedy Space Center back on April 1st, and a trip around the moon.
Couldn't have said it better than that.
Yep.
The data and imagery that we're about to retrieve from these astronauts and this vessel.
A lot of screensavers.
A lot of screensavers and a lot of information. Now, I'm presuming the next one will be Artemis II.
Correct.
It's going to go up there.
Yep, Artemis III next year, 2027. Again, that's a rendezvous mission with 1, perhaps 2 of the actual landers that will take us to the lunar surface, though it won't be on that mission. It'll just be practicing connecting here close to Earth to make sure everything works.
Passing through 1,000 feet.
I don't know if we can drop our banner because there's something going on with the craft that maybe you can explain, Judd.
Yep, those are
the thruster
those
rockets.
Are the slight thrusters. Exactly.
What's going on there?
So it's slowing it down even more, just little pulses to, again, just as gently as possible touch the water.
Okay.
So because you can't steer the parachutes, so it's using the thrusters to steer the mass to bring it. You don't want to be right on top of the ship, but close to the ship.
And they're literally just feet.
There it goes.
Integrity, Splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
How about that?
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy, Splashdown. Waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time.
Just as predicted. That's rocket
From
science.
the pages of Jules Verne to a modern-day mission to the moon, a new chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts back on Earth.
And you can see they've cut away the parachutes like we talked about. They'll stay focused on here. We'll see helicopters and small boats come up to it pretty soon.
And the landing and support officer reports the vehicle is stable 1. We still will be deploying the crew module uprighting system to maintain that orientation. A perfect bullseye splashdown for Integrity and its 4 astronauts.
So what he was referring to is that if it was rougher seas, it potentially could not be sitting up nice and perfect like it is. It could have rolled onto its side. They're calling this the stable 1. So they have flotation device that they would, if it was on its side, they would attach it to it, and that would right it before they would open the capsule so that the ocean doesn't pour in.
You're watching live coverage here on Fox Local. Certainly appreciate you streaming with us this evening as we just once again watched history in the making with the splashdown of the Artemis II space capsule, 4 astronauts on board.
The unofficial splashdown time, 7:07 and 47 seconds p.m. Central Time. We'll get that refined for you. That would put the end of the mission at a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 31 minutes, 35 seconds.
And there you have it, Judd. You said, talk about rocket science. That was the precise moment that they were scheduled to splash down.
For very low data
to almost the second. It's pretty spectacular calculations.
We got some vessels headed out to the spacecraft now.
These are the Navy divers. There'll be about a half dozen
in the Pacific, south
doing this vessel righting flotation device. Though it's not really needed here, it's very good practice for futures where it might actually be needed. But you can see the ocean is, there's not too many surfers happy about that ocean, I don't think.
Our
If you're just joining us, this is Tom Haynes here at Fox 5 with Judd Reedy, the Executive Director of the Space Research Institute. No better person to have to help us kind of walk our way through exactly what's happening as Artemis II sits out there in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego. 4 crew members on board. As Professor Reedy was just saying, we got some Navy divers headed out to the craft right now to begin the process of getting that vehicle up on board one of these ships and getting the astronauts out of the vessel.
Yeah, probably be about half an hour before we actually physically see the astronauts being hoisted into the helicopters. They have to make sure that those rocket thrusters that we saw, they don't accidentally fire when the Navy divers are right next to it. You want to not have any gases that may have been generated from the ablative reentry that are toxic. There'll still be a pretty strong aroma, I would imagine, around the spacecraft after ablating through the atmosphere for that amount of time.
And so much like the waiting game, if you will, when the astronauts were sitting on the launch pad waiting to lift off from Kennedy Space Center for hours on end. I think they boarded the thing around noontime, and they didn't lift off until after 6 p.m.
Yep. It's a long time to sit.
It's a long time to sit, but here comes another waiting game where it's going to be a little chunk of time before we can get them out of the spacecraft and get them to try to stand up on 2 feet.
Yeah, they're happy to be home. They're feeling the rolling of the ocean. Their bodies are now feeling gravity, so they're unbuckling and trying to lift themselves out of the seat, take their emergency equipment off, and get ready to fit out the capsule hatch.
Help us, if you will, wrap our arms around what the space is like inside that capsule, and were they confined to just the capsule for the entirety of the mission, or did they have that vehicle behind them
You had a little bit of room
that they released on their way back into the Earth's atmosphere?
Yeah, the service module does have a little room to move around in. The capsule itself is not as big as, say, an RV, but bigger than a minivan. So maybe like one of those Sprinter vans, if you've ever gone camping. So not especially large. Certainly for 4 people for a week and a half, you're in everybody's business. Everybody is right there. You're constantly bumping into people, but they've trained for so long that these are the best of friends. They work together. They go to barbecues together. Kids probably play together. So it's like a very nice week and a half long road trip, but they just never got out of the van.
This is all, of course, in preparation for being in such close proximity to one another. You have to think that NASA runs them through scenarios where they're confined in sort of a close area together and sort of interacting with each other.
The psychological aspects of spaceflight are severe. This not so bad. You can tolerate pretty much anybody for a week and a half. If you have an issue with a crewmate on a mission to Mars, it's years long.
And we have 5 and
that can spiral out of control, of course.
An upright configuration.
But yes, there's a lot of screening done to make sure that people are trained and how to get over conflicts.
A slow approach.
Yeah, so
there's going to be conflicts, no matter what.
This was considered, Judd, one of the most dangerous parts of this mission, if not the most dangerous part of the mission.
The whole thing's dangerous for sure.
Even more than the liftoff is the reentry, getting back to Earth, and that, in addition to really the entirety of the mission, went off without a hitch, down to the precise nature and the minute and the second to when this spacecraft actually touched down. It's incredible how they can do that.
So during the ascent, there's a variety of abort scenarios where they can get away from the rocket that may be misbehaving. On the return, there's relatively few, almost zero in certain parts of the time, abort scenarios. So when you say that this is a dangerous aspect, you're spot on.
We saw those couple of boats going out there to the spacecraft. I
think they might be on the backside of it maybe at this point.
Yeah, don't know what happened to them, or where they went.
Because they were certainly closer than what we're seeing.
Is it my understanding that they won't get out of the spacecraft until they've lifted it up onto the vessel?
No, they will get out there.
Okay.
And then they'll bring the spacecraft back to this ship that has a well deck into it, so it'll kind of gobble it up. They don't use a crane; it just goes inside.
So just because they've splashed down doesn't mean
SARSAT phone on board.
The critical nature of this mission's over yet. This is all part of the planning and the recovery of the astronauts and the preservation of the vehicle.
Yep, it's a shutdown checklist, just like you would shutting down your car is pretty easy. You just turn the keys off, maybe make sure your windshield wipers weren't on, or you close the garage door behind you. But there's so many more aspects to this, much like a aircraft. Once it pulls up to the gate, they don't just turn off the engines. There's a variety of things that you do to safe the radios and landing gear and everything.
I would imagine that this would give extraordinary momentum into the next mission. I mean, we know they were already planning for the next mission, but this is just a huge shot in the arm.
It is, and we've got a new administrator of NASA that comes from industry and is a venture capitalist and is just highly motivated to move much, much faster than what we've been moving. So I expect we see some phenomenal developments on the moon, and let's hope this is just the opening of a frontier that doesn't close again like it has for the past half century.
It's incredible because we, as I said, landed on the moon more than 40 years ago. We kind of lost, I don't know if we lost interest or we had our sights set on other things, deploying satellites.
We chose the Vietnam War over Apollo.
Were executed.
Right. There were some geopolitical issues that got in the way of NASA. NASA kind of, under the Obama administration, shut down for a while. For all intents and purposes. But I mean with the shuttle missions, during the 80s, the goal and the ambition of the shuttle missions was to bring up payload and to release them into space more than, gee, wouldn't it be nice to get back to the moon?
It was to demonstrate technologies that we could live in space for long periods of time, over a year. We built the space station that started 1998, so it's over a quarter century old now, slowly adding modules from partner countries. It started out with Russia's partners, Japanese partners, European partners, to build this international space station that we continue to have it right now. Georgia Tech has research on it every single day of this year. We've got solar cells on there right now being explored.
Wow, so a lot of your kids at Tech must be tuned into this, maybe a little homework assignment.
It's not hard to get kids excited about space.
Well, certainly not in your program. But so now we're sort of back to using the moon as a leapfrog into deeper space. To do that, the moon's going to become sort of a critical midway point, or not midway point, but a waypoint on our way to deeper space.
Yeah, if you think about the exploration of the western frontier for America, St. Louis became that waypoint. You didn't have to go through St. Louis to go out to California, but a lot of people tended to do that way, to load up on supplies. And the same will be here. It's really a good practice to develop these technologies of life support, processing human waste, to recycle the water out of it, to capture the humidity that comes out of your mouth as you breathe, reutilize that to drinking water. Going to Mars is a lot different. Mars has an atmosphere. So the landing technologies that we develop on the moon are different than what would be on Mars, because they have an atmosphere much like Earth does. It's not as thick as Earth's, but it is present. There we see the boats pulling up.
Yeah, now we're getting a better look at these vessels around the Artemis II capsule. What are the sort of balloon round type objects on the top of the spacecraft?
Those, if it was tipped over on its side, would help it to right itself.
Okay.
And should it begin to take on water, it will keep it from completely sinking.
Gee, we talked about how placid the seas were, but it looks like that thing's getting bounced around quite a bit.
It's starting to rock a little bit. I do see a few white caps.
It's incredible, Judd, the speed at which we moved towards space exploration back in the 50s, 60s, through the 80s was like glacial compared to what it is now. I feel like we're moving a lot quicker in our research and development and and speed with which we're moving toward discovering all of these new frontiers. The shuttle program took, and that was it for like 25 years.
Sure. There's just so many more resources pouring in. In the past, when I was a child, when you were a child, the federal government was essentially it. That was the major resources. Now there's so much commercial opportunities, whether it's a Starlink satellite constellation. I mean, we've always had communication satellites that news agencies such as yours have used, but there are just a vast number of Earth imaging applications. You can take images in visual pictures like we see here to help with, MapQuest and those things, or you can take them in infrared and see how crops are behaving in the drought that we're having here in Georgia right now, for instance.
And Houston, if you could relay to recovery.
Matt, would it be a good time to maybe to do like a big little where one of the engineers and creators at Lockheed Martin of this capsule spoke to me today about the work that went into building it. I don't know, maybe we could kind of listen to him as they circle the vessel. Yeah, let me set him up. He's with Lockheed Martin, one of the engineers and developers of the Artemis II capsules.
Fabulous.
And I spoke to him today about his work in developing the capsule and how it all came together. Let's listen to a little bit about what he had to say.
Okay.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us. This must be a really special moment for you as one of the people that kind of created and crafted this space capsule. What a remarkable feat of engineering.
Yeah, I just can't say enough about the team at NASA and at Lockheed Martin that has worked on this over the years. It's a real team of passionate, dedicated people that has just has a passion for human spaceflight and for the things that this can bring to our world. And it's a big moment for us to finally get to see it go take those amazing pictures of the moon and bring the kinds of different view of our reality and of who we are as people to the world, and then now to see it come home and end the mission hopefully really well here in the next little bit.
Well, speaking of this moment, since you mentioned it, I mean, what is this moment like as these astronauts basically burn their way through the Earth's atmosphere, 3,000 plus degrees, re-entering the Earth in an explosive fashion? What's sort of going through your mind as we watch these astronauts return to Earth?
Well, I mean, it's certainly the most nail-biting part of the whole mission. We have a lot of history, a lot of test data, a lot of analysis that has all gone into this moment. But it is still one of the more hair-raising parts of it, because as they're going through that upper part of the atmosphere and ionizing the gas around them as they come in, we lose contact. And so the ground control teams down in Houston and their support staff around the world aren't really able to do much to help them during that. It's really all on the machine to perform as we've designed it to perform during that time. And we have every confidence in it. We think this machine has been doing really, really well as it's gone around the moon and it's ready to go. But that is a hair-raising few moments when you're out of comms and you don't really know how it went until you see that voice come back on the radio at the end of that 6 minutes.
And when you're talking about 3,000 degrees, Sean, it's basically you're burning through the atmosphere.
Yep.
The spacecraft must be made of some incredible material. I understand that it was updated a bit since the last Artemis capsule re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. Tell us what the issue was with the first Artemis and how this spacecraft has been sort of reinforced to protect the 4 astronauts on board.
Sure. So you're right. We have to use very special materials that can go through those kind of intense heating environments like we see when we come in on a reentry from deep space. There's a material on the heat shield called AVCoat, which is specially designed material to essentially slough away and take the heat with it as we're re-entering. What we saw after Artemis I was that process of what's called ablating, the material coming off to take the heat away with it. That didn't happen exactly as we expected it to. It's supposed to come off in a nice, even, smooth way, and it came off in chunks. And we subsequently discovered that we were kind of on the cutting edge of how that material is used, and we learned about how we have to change the properties of that material in the future so that it can, basically the gases that it creates when it's really hot can come out easier without coming out in little explosive bursts that take chunks with it. Yeah. So this heat shield actually has the same formulation as the Artemis I, but what we've done is we've worked very closely with our NASA partners to make sure that the entry profile that we're flying today is customized so that it keeps the crew in a safe regime that stays out of that phenomenon. There was about a 2-year study that went in that to make sure that we have a very safe entry profile with a lot of good margin to keep them safe as they're coming in today.
Yeah, you've no doubt been watching this mission as closely as we have. They've accomplished some pretty remarkable things. What has impressed you the most about these 10 or so days in space and all that these astronauts have accomplished?
Well, first of all, I can't say enough things about the crew themselves. They have just, in my opinion, risen to this occasion for all of humanity, have really showed us the kind of the reasons why those of us that are in this business want to dedicate our life's work to exploring the cosmos. I think they have really brought home the joy and the love for all mankind that sort of engenders this pursuit. So that has been the first thing that has really impressed me, is the crew themselves have just been incredible, I think. The ship itself has done really, really well, quite honestly. There have been a few funnies that happen on the first time you fly any new creation. Social media has had a really good time with the
toilet backing up.
The toilet on this one. Right.
Some plumbing work that needed to be done.
There's a few things that we'll have to tweak when we get back.
Hey, if that's the biggest problem we had, then we're doing pretty good.
Exactly.
But
we'll take it.
But this is really the first time that we've hurled 4 human beings so deep into space. So how did your design team sort of prepare or instruct the crafting of this space capsule to hurl them so deep to the other side of the moon?
Sure. So there's a million things that go into it. It turns out that space is a very hard environment to keep people alive in. We're really well adapted to the surface of the Earth and not well adapted to be out in space at all. So from the temperature extremes, it can get very, very cold in the shade. When the crew went through that eclipse behind the moon the other day, it gets very, very cold for a minute, and it can get very, very hot in the sun. There's radiation from coming in from deep space that you have to deal with. So there's all of those aspects of making sure that we have thermal protection systems that can keep them warm when they need to be, cold when they need to be, protect them from the radiation environment, the loads that you see on ascent. There's kind of 1,000 things that all go into it, and it takes a large team of really brilliant, dedicated people that are sort of the experts in the world at each of those aspects of physics and engineering to make sure that all of those different dimensions of how the system has to operate and the conditions it has to operate within can all be true at the same time. Yeah. So that for the crew, it's a nice 75 degrees and happy inside of the cabin there.
Tell us, we talked about the conditions under which the spacecraft is going to be subjected to on the re-entry, temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees, but what is the crew inside actually going to be feeling at the pinnacle of that re-entry?
Sure. Well, the big thing that they'll be experiencing is some pretty hefty G-forces. They'll weigh at the worst of the deceleration that they'll see. They'll weigh about 4 times what they weigh on the surface of the Earth. Go through about 4 Gs. The system tries to control itself to keep keep it at or below that, so they won't get any higher Gs than that. But that'll be the biggest thing. The temperature inside the spacecraft actually doesn't really change all that much. The heat shield and the tiles on the outside of the spacecraft are really, really good at making sure that that energy stays outside and doesn't find its way inside. So there'll be a cozy room temperature inside as they're going. But that'll be the main thing that they'll feel is the spacecraft is really hitting the brakes as it comes into the atmosphere there, and they'll really feel it slowing down in a hurry as they're coming in.
Well, speaking of slowing down, I mean, how fast are they going to actually be going once they get through the Earth's atmosphere and then are on their way back down to the ocean? There's nothing stopping them, really. They're going to be like speeding like a bullet, aren't they?
Oh, sure. So, I mean, you come in, when they first hit the top of the atmosphere, it'll be, 24,000 miles an hour. And that's where the worst of the heating comes in, because you're screaming so fast and displacing atmosphere so fast that friction just heats up in a hurry. But once they get through about a 6-minute window where the worst of that happens, then they're still going, several hundred miles an hour, but they'll be what we call subsonic at that point, slower than the speed of sound. And there'll be a few minutes then where they're essentially just more or less free falling through the air, but at more speeds that we're more used to seeing aircraft go. And then once they hit about 27,000 feet or so, that's where we start deploying the parachutes. There's a whole series of parachute deployment events that slow them down even more. And by the time they get to the surface of the Earth, they're going 15, 18 miles an hour when they hit the water. So
when that splashdown actually happens, Sean, what are sort of the first things that happen to get these crew members out of the capsule safely?
You bet. So the first thing is we try to steer the capsule. We actually have more control over the capsule than you might think. So we try to steer it on a pretty precise trajectory to come in as close to the recovery crews as we can, so that the recovery crews from the Navy can get to them as quickly as possible. But then there's a series of events once we splash down to safe the vehicle right away. They have to cut the parachutes away so those don't drag them under. Or carry them in the ocean currents. There's one of the cooling systems that we uses ammonia, which of course can be toxic to recovery crews. So we have to shut that system down, shut off the propellant system. So there's a safing of the vehicle that happens before recovery crews are clear to come up and approach it. And that usually happens within just a few minutes. And then at that point, the recovery crews are clear to go, and they have a series of events that they do to hook onto it and pull it into this big ship they call a well deck ship, and where they can get the crew out of it safely and back on to terra firma.
So finally, and as we kind of conclude with you, Sean, how does this set the table for what's next? In other words, we actually want to put people back on the moon, something we haven't done in over 40 years. How does this prepare us to do that, and when might that actually happen?
Sure. So there's teams at NASA and in various private companies right now are working on the larger architecture. And at this point, Orion is still definitely a big piece of that. It's the first key piece, because in order to send people to the moon and get them back home, you need the vehicle that can do that. So Orion is the key element of the architecture that the U.S. is going to be using going forward with our partners in Europe and others. And it is really going to be the workhorse that does what you just saw it do for this mission on every one of the lunar missions. Take the crew up, and then when the time is done and the mission is done, bring them safely back to Earth. We'll be adding in landers. Blue Origin, SpaceX are two partners right now that are both working on landers to actually take the crew down to the surface of the moon. But they'll be going up on an Orion and coming back on an Orion on all of those missions. Since this is the only spacecraft that exists right now that can actually do this high velocity reentry to bring astronauts back from the moon. So it's a key part of all of these things going forward.
We can't wait for that to happen. Sean O'Dell, among the huge team of geniuses that put together the Orion spacecraft at defense company Lockheed Martin. Sean, thanks so much for sort of helping us narrate this extraordinary experience, and we certainly hope for a successful splashdown tonight, and we appreciate your insight and you being with us tonight.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. All right, as we continue here, back with Judd Reedy, the Executive Director, Space Research Institute at Georgia Tech. Judd has been listening and watching with me. Judd, while we were talking to the folks over at Lockheed about the splashdown, we've been watching this sort of orchestrated maneuvering of these watercraft, all kind of setting the table for getting the astronauts, extracting them out of the space capsule, something that takes a little bit of time.
It does. It's not as simple as opening up the car door at all. There's, we've got the ammonia that you heard from the previous speaker from Lockheed, the pitching and rolling. Anybody that's tried to board a vessel, even in calm seas, when you get right up two vessels very close to each other, it can be a bouncy environment.
Are we going to hear, when will be the first time we hear from the astronauts? We talked about the visual part of this, yep, which is going to be huge for NASA. But we definitely want to hear from these people and their experiences up in space.
Yeah, we heard them call Splashdown. Now they're still maintaining radio communications now, but they'll be extracted, carried by helicopter back to the ship. There'll be some medical checkouts. I would say roughly half hour or so from the extraction of the capsule. Because they want to tell their story and we want to hear the story.
But I would imagine there'll be sort of a news conference here in the next couple of days when
most assuredly they'll get out.
They've been reacclimated.
They'll be flown once again. But the ship, they'll fly from the ship to San Diego. They'll take a plane from San Diego to Houston, and there'll be a great party and a really good news conference.
Let's see if we can listen in on some of the communication between mission control and what's happening inside that capsule.
Yep.
Not a ton of communication right now between the astronauts and mission control, so to speak. But you do have a lot of vessel activity just outside the craft, and some choppers circling around. It's a methodical process, and one that has to be carried out as carefully as they circled the moon. Getting the astronauts safely out of the capsule. And you were talking about that they might have to go just to make sure that the astronauts are okay. They're going to do some blood pressure checks and what have you before they take them out of the capsule.
Yeah, it's the heart responding to gravity. Your blood, the amount of blood in your body has changed. Your muscles have changed during that process. So it's, imagine lying in a bed for a week and a half and then getting out and walk to the bathroom.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Your body just doesn't
After
quite move right.
After talking to the flight dynamics folks, we have a bit of a refinement on the splashdown time for you. Their computation shows a splashdown time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time.
Let's see what did they say it was going to be.
So let's compare that with...
Yeah, 27.
That would equate to A mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds.
Yeah, they didn't put the seconds on this one, no, but 8:07.
Okay, 8:07. Pretty good.
7:07 Central, 8:07 our
Give or
time.
take 20 seconds.
Yep.
Once again,
when you're coming from a quarter million miles away, that's a
Pretty good, right?
on-time arrival.
time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Reports from the Pacific indicate that the recovery team, in communications with the crew aboard Integrity, that the crew remains in excellent shape as they await the approach of the team for a final hazard gas evaluation before they move to the side of the vehicle to erect the inflatable life raft called the front porch.
Boat's coming right up to it now.
Mm-hmm. Judd, one of our folks that's watching on YouTube is asking, how hot is the capsule when it actually hits the water?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that. I'll definitely have to look up. It's
no
not.
issues,
I doubt that a big cloud of steam was generated from there, but certainly it would be warm to the touch. Perhaps even scalding to the touch.
Yeah. To the exploration ground.
Plenty of time for it to have cooled down by now.
It did, because it came through it was certainly hot, but then it came through the cold atmosphere, and it was there for, a quarter of an hour, 10 minutes or so.
Team depart its positions until that inflatable raft, the front porch, is erected, the hatch open, and the crew having exited the vehicle. So that's the next step in the recovery process that will lead to the hoisting of the crew members. For 2 crew members for each helicopter, they'll be hoisted to a pair of
not
Navy
a bad job if you're
that
a
will
Navy
fly
diver
a short
to
distance
have that
back to the
opportunity
USS John P. Murtha.
So do I have this right? They're going to attach the astronauts to
What you're looking
a
at
helicopter
is one of the
hoist?
fast boats, circling the vehicle to make a hazard assessment.
It's going to be a pretty extraordinary thing to watch. Instead of putting them on board one of these vessels out here.
Correct.
Why is that? Just the way they do it?
Deemed to be safer.
Okay.
Getting slung underneath a helicopter as opposed to riding in a Navy inflatable.
Water is nice and calm, or relatively calm for what's about to happen here.
Yeah, that helps.
As we wait for these Navy folks to open the hatch and take a look inside. That'll be a sight that these astronauts are going to welcome, not only getting back to Earth, but seeing the hero divers here that are going to hoist them back to safety, I guess.
I'd be willing to bet that more than one astronaut dips their hand into that Pacific and splashes a little water on their face or feels a good home Earth.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, though, Judd, the mission was just under 10 days. Not a ton of time to be in space.
Nope. Just enough to
relatively speaking.
Yeah, they wanted to do a free return trajectory so that anything that might happen with the propulsion module really didn't matter once you're on the way there. That you were automatically going to re-enter here, even if something went wrong. But more complex missions will take an orbit or a trajectory to the moon that places it in orbit around the moon, because you have to be in orbit. Then you'll separate the lander. Lander will land. We'll explore the moon for. First, it'll just be a few days, but ultimately several weeks, and then come back up to the capsule and fire the propulsion module to come back home.
What do you make of the condition of the actual capsule? Is this?
I can see a little bit of charring here and there. You can see the sun glint, of course, because it's close to sunset and it's metallic. But I'm sure right around the edges where it's near the water line, you can see a black to metal transition. That's where that heat shield meets it. I'm sure there's just flows of scorch marks right next to it.
And so not only will we get a lot of information from the astronauts, but there's going to be a lot of examination of the physical capsule too.
Yep.
by the folks that we just spoke to at Lockheed and NASA scientists who want to see how it endured the reentry process.
Yep, these capsules are actually designed to be reused later on. This will not be used on 3, 4, or 5. We've got Artemis
fast boats are now approaching
5 that are being built that will ultimately be reused.
The vehicle has been powered down. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling now waiting for the life raft, the front porch, to be erected along the side of the vehicle so that the hatch can be opened and the crew members extracted from Integrity, soon to be hoisted one by one into a pair of Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. If you missed it earlier, we talked to Flight Dynamics and received a more official touchdown time or splashdown time, as it were, of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Pacific Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds.
Famous Marine that won 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star in Vietnam and served with distinction in the...
I wonder the selection process, how they decide which vessel is even going to be out there. But they're really concerned about this splashdown time. They keep sort of refining it and adjusting it, and
you know us rocket scientists. We want to be precise.
I suppose so.
Yeah, that was curious that they wanted to correct it by whatever.
So they're actually going to reuse this spacecraft.
Ultimately, yes. The main bulk of the spacecraft will be reused. The heat shield itself will be torn off and reapplied, and but yes, the pressure vessel. Many of the components inside it were actually reused from Artemis I to get them some flight heritage, to understand how they behave after multiple flights. So there's Artemis 3, 4, and 5 are in various stages of construction right now at Lockheed. I was looking up pictures before I came here, and once we have that fleet established, we can rotate through it. The cadence of launches is not so great that we don't have time to refurbish.
How far along are they in the construction of the next vehicle that's going to go up?
Fairly far along with Artemis III. It's they're down at Kennedy Space Center, getting constructed there. 4 and 5 are a good bit farther out because 4 is not supposed to fly until 2028, and then 5 is still a shell, but it's a good bit farther behind.
We were talking earlier about the fact that this is all a process to eventually head out to Mars. How long would that journey take from our area out to Mars?
Yeah, so that's one of the key problems with going to Mars. So if you want to do a free return trajectory like we did here with the moon, where you launch and then you're assured that you'll come back to Earth, which is good for crew morale. Those are more like a year and a half to go, stay, and then come back to Earth to give you roughly a 6-month stay on Mars. You can use nuclear thermal propulsion, which is a big push for NASA to speed that up to just a few months. But then you're reliant on the engine to get you back. It's not a free return trajectory that you do have to reignite your engines. And
so it's a year and a half there.
No.
Or is it round trip?
Round trip.
Okay. And 6 months on Mars, do we have to have any sort of infrastructure out there to support that?
That's the problem. Yeah, you got to bring it with you. There's not a Motel 6 when you get there, so you got to
continuing to get excellent views.
You can't bring all the water with you. You can't bring all the food with you. You can't bring all the oxygen with you. So you have to be able to live off the land. You're going to have to be able to produce your own food, produce your own oxygen, produce your own water, or at least recycle your water. Or maybe harvest it from Moon itself or Mars itself.
And the spacecraft to get you out to Mars would look a lot different than what we're looking at right here.
Very much so.
Yeah.
They'll have similar heritage, and there's a variety of different design that you can do. You know, direct to Mars is a name of a mission model where you go straight from the Earth to Mars and land. Others have multiple rendezvous in Earth orbit, and then go out there because you have to fill up with a lot of fuel and supplies. There's pros and cons to all things, just like there's a variety of different types of boats, a bunch of different types of cars.
Yeah.
So, same thing.
This is quite a process, and a methodical one. at that.
Other recovery personnel
The approach to the
for several years
space vehicle, the opening of the capsule door, the examination of the astronauts, the condition of the space vehicle itself is something not to be taken lightly. The approach.
Yeah, there's the first touch right there. They're waving at each other through the window, it looks like.
So they're kind of unbuckled and up and about.
Yep.
Waiting for the door to open.
Yep. I imagine they've depressurized their suits, taken off helmets, getting ready to get out.
Is this sort of like when you're on the back of the airplane, and you're standing there waiting to...
It does seem like way too many people are messing with the overhead bins.
Right? It's taken forever.
Yep.
There's no hazardous gas emanating from the vehicle. That's why...
I wonder what the smoke is on the horizon here.
Recovery personnel
just to help
integrity.
locate it.
Okay.
The reports
As a pilot, it's amazingly difficult to see stuff on the sea.
Yeah.
Even something with bright orange balls like
sort of a guidepost for the chopper pilots,
Yep.
maybe circling above.
Yep. Helps you determine the wind as well.
Yeah. This is a painstakingly slow process, but one that is designed to be that way.
Safety first. You want the safety of the astronauts inside, safety for the Navy divers outside. You don't want to. You want the spaceship to be safe as well. So a lot of checklists.
Not only are the astronauts trained to do what they do, but this exercise we're seeing on the part of the Navy crew out on these vessels is something that's also probably rehearsed time and time again.
Yep. Just last year they did an actual rehearsal with a spacecraft that they lowered, dropped from a helicopter, and then had the Navy divers come up and practice on that with astronauts inside it to just refine the procedures and make sure, when you tell a certain astronaut to turn certain bolts to open the hatches, that's physically possible, that people aren't in the way.
And indeed, part of the training that the astronauts probably go through too, what to do when you're sitting there waiting to get extracted from the space vehicle.
And the contingencies. If this was flipped over and they're on the head, how do you handle that? If you begin to have water intrusion, how do you handle that? If the waves were much bigger, the limits are about 6 feet of waves, which are pretty good sized waves.
If that were the case, do they relocate the splashdown site?
That's one of the key reasons why they want to do the reentry profile that they had on Artemis I, is that gives you the ability to essentially steer the spacecraft to a much larger part of the ocean, so that you can avoid thunderstorms.
Right. Is standing by to provide her situation report. Megan, can you hear us?
Hey, Rob. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Yeah, we're back here on the bow of the recovery ship where there are still plenty of people peering out into the water. We are not very far from the action everyone is seeing on their screen now. The Orion spacecraft, integrity in the ocean, surrounded by a number of recovery boats. As Rob has been saying, in those recovery boats, NASA and Navy personnel specifically trained to get the astronauts out of Orion.
Matt, are we out?
Some of our wide shots, you can probably see that there are 6 boats out in the water. More than 40 people out in the water right now on those boats. first order of business is to set up the front porch and the stabilization collar. You might also hear it referred to as a stab collar. Basically just to make sure that Orion stays upright, doesn't sway in the water too much, again, to make it easier for recovery forces to get the astronauts out. Again, we splashed down in the Pacific Ocean just after 5 p.m. Pacific time here. It's a requirement by NASA to be able to get the crew out of Orion within 2 hours of splashdown. So doing great on time so far. Plenty of time. No rush either. I was speaking to NASA flight surgeon Rick Schuring earlier in this broadcast, and he said to me, no rush to get the crew out. Just want to make sure that they're feeling good, and whenever they're ready to take their step out of Orion and onto that large raft, the front porch, folks will be ready. As there are mission audio loops in Mission Control in Houston, there is a mission audio loop here on the ship, and it was just reported out that the side hatch is open. Side hatch of integrity is open. You're getting these beautiful shots from our aerial assets. The ship itself, where I'm on, just 3,000 yards away. Again, plenty of people on the boat here, glued to the side closest to where they can see all this action. And again, with just 3,000 yards separating us, great views from the bow here. You can see now that side hatch is open. One of the Navy personnel is about to get inside there. They go. In total, 4 will go into Orion. So it'll be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but the goal is to have a recovery personnel with each astronaut assessing them. Boats getting closer now. Again, that one that's right up against Orion, those are the divers that will go in to the spacecraft to check on each of the astronauts. These other boats will begin doing a number of things, putting on that stabilization collar onto Orion, building that front porch. Eventually, they will retrieve the parachutes, as well as tow Orion back to the well deck of the recovery ship here. And so as we wait for the Navy and NASA personnel to get their assessment of the crew inside of Orion, why don't we toss it back to Rob for an update?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Rick Henfling and the entry team of flight controllers still on duty. The vehicle has been powered down for some time now. There are no hazardous gases emanating from integrity. That, of course, allowed the recovery personnel to approach the vehicle and then open the hatch to begin the initial medical assessment of the crew, as you just indicated. Now we're standing by for the erection of that inflatable raft, the front porch, alongside of the vehicle that will enable the crew to be extracted one by one onto the raft, have a moment or two to get their land legs back before they're hoisted into two hovering Navy helicopters, 2 crew members for each helicopter, for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. All of Integrity's systems operated flawlessly throughout the course of the approach to the Earth, the entry into the Earth's atmosphere, and all of the key milestones that followed in this high-speed return to Earth for Integrity, a mission that spanned more than 694,000 miles from the vehicle's launch from the Kennedy Space Center atop the Space Launch System back on April 1st.
All right, Tom Haynes here in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Judd Reedy, professor and executive director, Space Research Institute at Georgia Tech. Professor Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen, the astronauts on board that spacecraft. We now see these vessels closer to the craft itself, actually attaching to it.
Yep.
One of the Navy guys actually got into the vessel, I presume to examine the astronauts just to see if they're okay.
Checking vital signs, checking blood pressure, heart rates, pulse ox, anything that you go for, you know, your traditional checkup type vital signs.
And this is a process that will...
At the top of the broadcast,
listen in real quick.
The last time that the Apollo program saw a splashdown in the Pacific was Apollo 17 back on December 19th, 1972. So for the first time in some 53 and a half years, we have reenacted that with the arrival of Integrity's astronauts as they flew around the moon in that historic lunar flyby that began with a trans-lunar injection burn that took them out of Earth orbit following 24 hours of a high Earth orbit trajectory. The high Earth orbit trajectory enabled flight controllers here to have a full 24 hours to evaluate the systems on Integrity and the condition of the crew before they would commit to flying to the moon.
So they're putting out some inflatable technologies, the front porch that they're describing, to give a little bit more room for the astronauts to get out of the spacecraft when they get hoisted into the 2 different helicopters. There's 4 astronauts, 2 in each helicopter. But they're also going to, I would imagine, bring this loop around the spacecraft because that's demonstrating the righting technologies that they would use, for instance, if the spacecraft was tipped over on its side and could not right itself on its own. It is sitting properly, but you do want to test it while you got the chance.
We have divers in the water now around the spacecraft.
Yep.
As you said,
looks like a dozen of them.
I guess bringing that, what will become an inflatable device of some sort, back to the craft. I'm guessing at some point it's going to be attached.
One would hope they would have attached it to begin with.
Yeah.
But they do look to be struggling a little bit with the current to get back around to it. Their buddies on the boats are probably making fun of them a little bit, being Navy guys.
Be interesting to know what the space is like on board the capsule, whether they can stand upright or are they still seated in their...
It's cramped.
Yeah.
All 4 of them cannot stand up at the same time. And I'm sure they're anxious to get out. You know, the hatch is open, that beautiful Pacific breeze is leaking in, and it's They can hear the waves lapping against the side, and they know they're home safe. They know they're an hour or so from seeing their daughters, their husbands, their wives, children, all the other loved ones, and just really looking forward to. I'm sure it was a great trip, but I'm sure they love to be home too.
So we have one of the larger vessels there. You could see the door open on the side of the craft.
Could see a person inside. There's probably a Navy diver, if I had to guess. The medic checking them out. You can't put too many medics in there. It's pretty cramped to begin with for 4 people.
Slow but steady, the removal of the astronauts, that yellow
as it
covering of the door there.
As it pivots around here, I think we'll probably be able to see inside. It's teasing us with the slight glimpse inside. I'm sure we'll see a little motion. Maybe they'll give them a tip to give us a wave or something.
With the side hatch of Orion having been opened to set the stage for the erection of the inflatable life raft, known as the front porch, to be erected alongside the spacecraft for the extraction of the crew. Let's play for you an interview that my colleague Megan Cruz conducted on the USS John P. Murtha with Navy diver First Class David McMahon that explains how this process is unfolding.
Okay, Davey, so you and some of your team, one last look over of the stabilization collar, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what is this stabilization collar?
This is what's going to stabilize the capsule out there in the ocean. We don't know how good the weather or the waves will be that day, so this will help prevent any unnecessary occurrences from happening, stabilizing the capsule and the astronauts inside.
So basically this is a float that will go around Orion. I'm assuming that what they're doing right now, these are the lines that will attach the collar onto Orion?
That is correct.
And so what are they doing here?
So we've got the lower.
That gives you a good sense of how big the capsule is, though, as that goes around the perimeter.
So not that big.
No.
That gives us the go-ahead that it's secure in its space, and then we'll inflate it, and then once that is done, we'll undo all the carabiners and get this orange line on top tied in the same fashion, and then this will be secured to the capsule, and the astronauts can safely take their first steps out of the capsule onto the front porch.
Okay, and how long will it take them to set up the stabilization collar?
We should definitely be able to handle this in under 10 minutes.
Okay, wow. And then you just mentioned the front porch. So basically after they set up this stabilization collar, then they set up what's called the front porch here.
That's correct.
Okay, and what's the front porch?
Front porch is basically a bigger waiting room for the astronauts to sit in.
It's a big front porch.
For the helicopters to
big as the capsule itself.
Okay, so the medical team that was inside with the crew, they're going to help them out and onto the front porch?
That is correct.
And then what happens here?
We have higher trained medical personnel also on board the front porch that will give them lookovers and just make sure they're okay while we wait for the helicopters to show up.
Okay. How does it feel, I mean, your team, you, to be part of a mission that's returning astronauts from the moon in more than 50 years?
We all feel extremely honored to be a part of this, as well as a bigger mission for the Navy and joining up with NASA to do great things.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you and your team are ready?
Yes, very ready.
Cool. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, he said their goal was 10 minutes to get this inflated, and
once again, the recovery operations are continuing out in the Pacific. We shortly should see that life raft, the front porch, erected alongside the side hatch of the vehicle.
There's, you can see a few people in there. Mm-hmm. Tell the cameraman to zoom in.
A number of flight controllers have come into the flight control room to receive congratulations from Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling, but we're going to stick with our operations out in the Pacific as we await the extraction of the 4 crew members who are reported to be in excellent condition. Again, while we stand by for that front porch to be erected alongside of the side hatch of the vehicle, let's go back to the USS John P. Murtha and Megan Cruz. Megan?
Hey, Rob. Pausing now to listen to some internal audio loops. Again, the operations team here on the ship communicating with everyone out on the water. It seems like currents are hindering them a little bit from unfurling and inflating the stabilization collar as well as the front porch. But again, the requirement to get the crew out within 2 hours of splashdown, plenty of time. So no concerns just yet. But as calm as the water looks, yeah, it looks like it's hindering the teams just a tad. You can see in some of our shots that side hatch still open. Again, inside there are now 8 people inside. 4 divers, Navy divers, all with medical training, each assigned to an astronaut each. Making sure that they're comfortable, feeling good. As you've heard us say in the broadcast, you know, they expect a little bit of discomfort. Again, these astronauts just traveled back to Earth at 25,000 miles an hour, a nearly 695,000-mile journey around the moon. If you think you get car sick. Again, 6 boats out there, lots of gear with them, just in case, right? As we said, the crew reported feeling great, but again, all those folks out there in case they weren't, right? NASA is all about making sure we think about every situation that can happen, and so, of course, wanted to be ready in case any of our astronauts needed more medical attention while out there in the water. You see now teams, again, trying to set up the stabilization collar and front porch for the crew to get out of Orion. They need both, right? The stabilization collar will keep Orion from swaying as you see it is doing now. And then they will connect the front porch to the stabilization collar so that the crew can take 2 steps and they will be in the front porch. Chatter on the mission audio loops, that's a good thing. Again, things proceeding pretty nominally, even if they're fighting some currents out there on the Pacific Ocean. Again, the goal, setting up the stabilization collar and the front porch so that the crew can rest comfortably in the front porch, get placed into harnesses so that 2 helicopters can lift them off the front porch and onto the USS John Murtha here. The helicopters are going to take turns picking up an astronaut. So again, Helo 1 and Helo 2. Okay, and And the recovery team here on the ship just got a report from the undersea medical officer who is inside the capsule with the crew. He is reporting all 4 members are green. All of our 4 astronauts, Reed, Victor, Christina, Jeremy, green, meaning they are feeling great, not the complexion of their skin. They are feeling great, happy to be home, and ready to be extracted as soon as possible. And so, as I was saying, we have 2 helicopters circling the activity you're seeing on the water right now. Each will take turns picking up an astronaut. So Helo 1 will come on in, hover above the front porch, about 40 feet above the front porch. A Navy recovery specialist will be hoisted down into the front porch.
The restricted maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
We'll connect to the first astronaut, which we're expecting to be Christina. And then Helo 2 comes around, picks up Jeremy, while Helo 1 stays above head. And then Helo 1 will come back in for another astronaut, and then Helo 2 for the last astronaut, and then back to the flight deck here on the recovery ship. I was talking to Assistant Artemis Recovery Director Paul Sierpinski. He said helos are a much quicker, safer way to get on board. They did actually consider boats, but then if you think about it, longer time, the crew would have to move through more of the ship. This way the helos will give a more direct, quicker route to the medical bay for our 4 astronauts. Beautiful shots from our aerial and imagery teams. Clouds have dissipated for a clear view from the bow of the recovery ship here. You can still see divers in the water there. Encircling Orion, that is that stabilization collar we've been telling you about. As you saw in that interview just a few minutes ago, they have to first connect it to Orion, and then once it's secured onto Orion, they can inflate it, and then they'll further secure it with other harnesses and lines. About an hour and 10 minutes since splashdown in the Pacific Ocean here. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy back home after a history-making mission to the moon and back. If you missed what we said just a couple of minutes ago, the undersea medical officer inside with the crew in Orion reporting all 4 crew members feeling great. Progress being made there on the stabilization collar. It looks like they are beginning to inflate it. and it looks like they're starting to unfold the front porch in order to get that into the water here shortly and inflate that as well. Again, more than 40 people out in the water right now. And those Navy and NASA personnel have been in the water for now about 4 hours. The reason why they had to get out so early is just to stage everything. And actually here on the ship, when there are flight operations happening, you can't have anything else, right? Just because the flight deck can be a dangerous place, so they just want to focus on planes coming and going from the ship, so that's why they wanted to get the boats in the water to make sure that they have all the time they needed for the flight ops. And then the same crew here out in the water, they will stay out in the water for a number of hours after we recover the crew and get them back on the ship, because then they have to recover Orion. All right, that stabilization collar looking good around Orion. We're now seeing some recovery personnel getting on to that collar. Again, they need to further attach it to Orion to make sure that it can really prop up the spacecraft. It's basically lifting it up off of the water just a tad. Again, so it's not so so it doesn't sway so much in the water there. And now that front porch looks like it's nearly fully inflated as well. You can see a much larger surface area. So once the crew get out of Orion, they can stretch their legs a little bit on this front porch, get some fresh air. And enjoy this beautiful day here on their home planet. Appears teams now are about to connect the front porch to the stabilization collar. And at that point, when both are secure, we should soon see astronauts come out of Orion. These views you see also being fed to the Landing Force Operations Center here on the ship. Of course, it is very important for our recovery teams leading the mission to have all the views that you're seeing as well. again, listening to their communication loop here on the ship. Very quiet, which is a good thing. It means things are going pretty nominally, meaning as expected. All this activity happening just 3,000 yards away from the ship. So that means this will be a very quick flight back on the helicopters for the crew. 2-3 minutes, and then they'll be back here on the ship.
I know.
Okay, saw a thumbs up from one of the personnel on the front porch. It looks like they are now getting ready to deploy what they call the Air Rescue Vest, ARV. And so this is the harness that each crew member will get into in order to be hoisted into the helicopters. Again, those helicopters hovering just about 40 feet above the front porch when they're ready to pick up each crew member.
This is Mission Control Houston. Behind me, a fairly raucous scene as hundreds of flight controllers have poured into the flight control room here. This is reminiscent of the scene after the final shuttle mission of STS-135, although that was the end of a program. This is only the beginning of a program with the textbook splashdown of Integrity and its 4 astronauts. We're standing by for the crew to be extracted from the spacecraft. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling invited all of these flight controllers who have contributed to this mission to enter the flight control room to have an opportunity to receive well wishes and to share the mutual glow that exists in the wake of a textbook mission for Integrity. On the front screen here in Mission Control, a sign that says "Welcome Home Integrity, taking humanity back to the moon, going further, and returning safely to Earth." So all of that jubilation, part of the post-splashdown activities, even as we await the crew being extracted from the vehicle to be hoisted onto Navy helicopters for the trip back to the USS John P. Murtha. once again here in Mission Control. This view of the Artemis Flight Control Room, known as the White Flight Control Room. This is the old shuttle flight control room, and now is the home of Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Once again, quite a few flight controllers were invited in by Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling to share in the jubilation following the successful splashdown of Integrity. That splashdown occurring an hour and 22 minutes ago, as we stand by for the completion of the extraction of the crew, and ultimately they're hoisting onto Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the USS John P. Murtha. Splashdown occurred at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. I had an opportunity to talk to the head of Flight Dynamics, Jeff Birch, a moment or two ago. He said the trajectory of Integrity coming through the Earth's atmosphere was so precise, they've never seen anything line up on a ground track like today's entry by Integrity for its splashdown southwest of San Diego. And the initial, you can hear it. Jubilation here in the flight control room. The first crew member is out of Integrity. We are expecting the other crew members momentarily to be extracted. We now have 2 crew members out. Two crew members out, 2 to go. We're about 1 hour from sunset out in the Pacific. Everything continues to go well. Integrity's systems function perfectly during its entry back to Earth. And Reed Wiseman, the commander who will be last out of the vehicle, reported that all the crew members were feeling very well. Crew member number 3 now out. And now standing by for the commander, Reed Wiseman, who will be last out of his ship. Bobbing in the Pacific under almost ideal conditions, Integrity spanned 694,000 miles during its journey from launch to splashdown. And we now have Reed Wiseman out of the vehicle, all 4 crew members now out of integrity. Once again, all 4 crew members now on the front porch, and the procedure to begin hoisting them up to these 2 Navy helicopters hovering overhead will begin shortly. This is Mission Control Houston. The mission is over, but the melody lingers on as jubilation continues here in the flight control room. We should be expecting NASA's Associate Administrator, Amit Kshatriya, to be joining us shortly for a short interview while the recovery operations continue out in the Pacific. So we'll stand by for that. And then we'll turn it back over to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha. This is Mission Control Houston here in the Artemis Flight Control Room. A number of flight controllers basking in the glory of the successful end of this mission that carried 4 astronauts around the moon on a lunar flyby, and the first test flight of Orion with crew members on board. Splashdown occurring an hour and 32 minutes ago after a flawless descent back into the Earth's atmosphere for the vehicle. Its 4 crew members in good shape, simply enjoying their time right now on the front porch, as it were, the inflatable raft alongside of their Integrity spacecraft. We're expecting Ahmed Shathria, the NASA Associate Administrator, to join us here momentarily for a brief interview before we turn it back over to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha, the recovery ship. This is Mission Control Houston. We're about an hour and 34 minutes since the textbook splashdown of Integrity in the Pacific to bring home our astronauts. And with us now is Ahmed Shathria, the NASA Associate Administrator. Ahmed, a little bit of history made tonight, a little bit of history made over the past few weeks. Your thoughts as this team here basks in the glow of what they just accomplished?
Yeah, Rob, we're here in the control center, and it's kind of overrun with jubilant folks in the Mission Control Houston, as well as engineering, and folks that just want to be here, part of it, as we watch our crew get extracted from the vehicle. And you know, my thought is always about these teams, the team that's in the water right now pulling the crew out, the team here in Houston that worked so hard over the last 10 days, no sleep to get this done. You know, we still have some work to do to get the crew to the med bay here on the ship. They all look great coming out, so hopefully that won't be too long. You know, I think we saw the administrator on the boat too, giving his thanks to the Navy team on the Murtha, which they're just an incredible group of sailors. I was able to visit with them a couple weeks ago. And then if you pull it all the way back to the workers and the folks that joined the rocket at Michoud, that made the heat shield tiles that held together tonight, that stacked the vehicle in Florida, that integrated the vehicle in Denver, that fired the engines in Stennis, that fired the boosters in Promontory. I mean, this is the entire team, coming together and being tested by the environment that this machine went through, and they did it right. The work was good. They did it right.
You've said in a number of briefings, of course, and in other forums that this is just the first step. The cadence has to step up, as the administrator has indicated. Now, it's a little early for the full report card on how Integrity did, but Did this mission ultimately, from your eyes view, exceed expectations?
It absolutely did. I mean, I was waiting to talk about this until we were in the water, and I think we still have, again, work to do to bring it in and really kind of go through it bolt by bolt and see what we learned. But I mean, so far, given what we learned during the mission and given how we performed on ascent, on entry, I always think about energy in terms of the states that you worry about the most. And every time we put these machines through these incredibly energetic states, they came through. So I'm fairly confident that we made a big step tonight to get us on the path towards the surface. I think the path to the surface is open now. We do have to do all the work, and we'll make sure we talk about that as cleanly as we can. We learned a few things during the mission, but I have to tell you, this was an incredible test of an incredible machine.
From an American psyche standpoint, the Empire State Building was lit up red, white, and blue tonight. Our coverage was seen on baseball stadiums around the major leagues. How captivating was this experience for the American people, for the world, in fact, as we returned to the moon? I have not been able to watch a lot of the coverage as we've progressed through the mission. I will tell you, just from my witness in Florida before launch, and then seeing the people's faces here, and then reading where I can about how things are going. I think this has been a gift to the world from NASA. NASA has given the world a gift, proving to folks all over the place, especially young people, and that to me is what this is really about. Young people, when they see what we can do when we work together, when we have teams that collaborate, that it doesn't matter how hard the problems are, we can solve them. I'm hopeful that Artemis II, as folks witness what we were able to do with this incredible crew, this incredible team that we've birthed into the world, scientists and engineers and artists that have been inspired by this. And even if they don't come work in the program, which separately they should come work in the program because Lord knows we need the help, but even if they don't want to come work in the program, hopefully they grow up to recognize they can do amazing things when they work together and contribute to society and be good citizens and really change the way, the challenges that are coming in the world are overcomable if we work together like this. And one final question. Flying to the moon, we did it. We've done it again this past week and a half or so. But the engineering that went behind the design of this mission and the precision, the pinpoint precision of this vehicle entering that entry corridor, it's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is incredible when you think about the energies involved and the uncertainties involved. That when we inserted the vehicle into orbit, it was 99.2% down the middle. When we dropped the vehicle right on top of the fleet here, our guys knew exactly where to go, but the guidance was perfect. And it's interesting. I've got this question a lot over the last few weeks about, we did this before 53 years ago, and that. It is a reasonable thing to contemplate, like what's gone on since then. And what I'd tell you is, when we did Apollo, which again, the more we learn about what they did, the more magical it seems what they were able to accomplish given the technology and the learnings that they had. But when we did Apollo, the architects of Apollo, Gilbert, Seaman, von Braun, Mueller, what they really, really wanted to do, as they were contemplating what it meant to expand our range of action to the lunar surface, what they wanted to do was learn how to live and work in space for a long time. They wanted to do that first before they were confident they could expand their range of action to the moon. Now, of course, the politics of the time and the mission at the time was different, and so they had to go straight to the moon and bring people home. And then after that, the program kind of lost its momentum. But after that, NASA kept moving along those paths, right? So we recognized during Apollo that reusability was going to be important. We spent a lot of money on those machines, and we spent a lot of money on these machines here, but we recognized that reusability was important, which is why we built a winged space plane called Space Shuttle, and then we used that reusable machine to build a space station. And we learned for 25 years how to live and work in space, and have been able to develop technologies that can enable exploration. So really, what I think is now, 53 years later, we're at the point where the architects of Apollo would have been pleased that we're now ready to actually go back to the moon and go back to stay, because we've learned all the things we needed to learn.
There's a lot of people pleased here tonight, and we really thank you for joining us. Amit Kshatriya, NASA's Associate Administrator, as we begin to hoist the crew onto the helicopters to head back to the recovery ship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Congratulations, Amit. This is Mission Control Houston, with the crew members now beginning to be hoisted aboard the Navy helicopters. Let's go to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha, who will take it from here.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, back on the bow of the ship here, we are seeing the helicopters circling Orion. The first one there having just completed picking up the first astronaut. Helo 2 now hovering just 40 feet above the front porch, lowering a recovery specialist out of the helicopter. That person will touch down in the front porch just there. The crew members already outfitted with a harness that will allow them to quickly attach to the hoisting device. Look at the power of those blades throwing water out at the center there. The front porch with now 3 astronauts and the recovery specialists. Again, crews already outfitted with a harness vest. And here we go. Second astronaut now off the front porch, getting hoisted into the second helicopter. Helicopter will now hover just a distance away to give room for the first helicopter to come back and pick up the third astronaut. As we wait for that helicopter to come back, make its way back around, just want to mention that the President of the United States called our NASA administrator today while he was on the ship, just minutes after we interviewed him live on our coverage, and congratulated him and NASA on this history-making moment tonight. Helicopter 1 again hovering 40 feet over the front porch. We will soon see another recovery specialist getting lowered onto the front porch. Wow, imagine sitting on that front porch, the wind, the water. But again, the recovery team determined that a helicopter flight back to the ship here would be safer, faster, and more comfortable for our crew, who just completed a 10-day mission around the moon. Third astronaut in the air, getting hoisted quickly back into the first helicopter now. That first helicopter now on its way back to the ship here. We will soon see it land in just a few minutes. Again, all this action happening just 3,000 yards away from us, so a very quick flight back to the flight deck. And now the only person left on the front porch, Commander Reed Wiseman. That second helicopter now making its way back over to the front porch. Here it comes. Making its final approach here. Last astronaut, Commander Reed Wiseman, now off the front porch and almost into the second helicopter. both now on their way back to the ship where we are, the USS John P. Murtha, just west of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean.
Live pictures out in the Pacific Ocean of the last of 4 astronauts being lifted off the so-called front porch. Tom Haynes, joined by Judd Reedy, the executive director of the Space Research Institute at Georgia Tech, watching along with me. An extraordinary feat in and of itself, Judd, after almost 10 days in space, getting these astronauts out of the capsule onto this so-called, what was characterized as a front porch, so to speak.
It's a big raft.
Inflating that thing in these Pacific currents and then getting the astronauts up onto this helicopter. Looks like they do have quite a ways to go. We've been watching them being transported from the flotation device onto the ship where these astronauts are going to disembark the helicopter and finally get back onto some kind of firm ground there on the ship.
It'll feel good for those 4 astronauts to as firm as the ship can be, but even more firm once they get back to port in San Diego. Plenty of celebrations ahead for all of them.
What an extraordinary sight. I want to thank you so much for watching along with us.
Thank you so much,
this evening and narrating our coverage and giving us extraordinary insight into exactly how this whole mission came to a historic conclusion after an extraordinary trip around the moon. Thanks so much for joining us here on Fox Local. Fox 5 News at 10 is next.
Wheels down of the first helicopter carrying 2 of our Artemis II crew. Pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Cook. Kilo 1 on deck reported on the recovery loop. Again, the mission audio loops that the recovery team are using here to communicate with one another. And an announcement just made on the ship, integrity incoming. 2 more helicopters on their way to the flight deck, one carrying the crew, the other, one of our imagery helicopters. Again, kudos to our imagery and aerial teams for giving us these beautiful views of history in the making. Set amid a gorgeous, soon-to-be sunset here in the Pacific Ocean.